Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jay Rothman, and welcome to Real Men, Real Talk Raw. It is actually Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening in the United States, as I'm joined by four men in the studio coming in from all over the United States and from overseas. We've got Jeff Fasano coming in from Nashville, Tennessee, world-renowned and acclaimed photographer. Welcome to the studio, Jeff Fasano. We've got Evis Heath coming in from down under, who's going to give us the down low and the down under shortly. We got Josh Ritcher coming in from Santa Monica area of Southern California.
From all over the United.
And we got some feedback coming in. We also have Charles Mattocks coming in from the state of Florida. And Charles is welcome to Real Men, Real Talk Raw. This is your first time joining us. And it's nice to welcome you into this fine group of truth seekers and leaders in your own lives. And so welcome. I'm going to take a moment here to push us out on a few of my channels. What I'd like to do is really open it up. The last time we got together as a group was January 5th. It was right at the new year. We were all excited, not only us right here, but across the globe. So much anticipation and excitement of what 2020 may hold for all of us. And boy, how things change in just a number of weeks. And so with that, what I'd like to do is really just take some time here to invite some of you guys to just share what it's been like for you embracing a change in society, a change in how you go about your day to day. And how have you been working through the emotions and how are you facing this new world order as we have been living in it for the past number of weeks, globally speaking? I'm going to start with you, Evis. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Jay, and good evening, brothers on the other side of the pond. And thanks for having me again. And yeah, man, just what you were saying, Jay, when we started conversation before we got into the new year, it was just in the new year. And I actually had a quick look at that replay myself yesterday, and I was thinking about some of those takeaways that we went away with at the end of our stream. And it was quite interesting because, you know, we're talking about those big words like compassion, about surrender, about letting go, and all these other deeper sort of topics that come up within the community and the collective. And it seems now just within the space of, 2-3 months, that all of those big topics are now being realized by the collective all over the planet. And I thought it was quite significant because part of my story, as I mentioned through the start of that particular broadcast, it's talking about how all of those things were a part of me probably 2 years back. So it was feeling like I was being built for something. Now, I didn't know that at first because, you know, you take this pretty much on the chin and you take it a soft blow. But now it all started to make sense. And particularly just within these matter of few weeks, it feels like I've turned up for the light show for this, Jay. Now, I know you've introduced me as a fitness model and this fitness trainer and all these other things, but I no longer see myself as just that. I actually see myself as nothing. And it was funny, I actually got introduced at a school I was doing a bit of a workshop and a talk to, and the teacher asked me, what would you like to be introduced as? And I said, nothing. And they were thinking, what do you mean by that? And this is just totally new to a lot of people's mindsets, because when I mean nothing, I came to the conclusion that I was everything, that I was you, that I was me, that I was these kids that I was talking to, that I was the neighbor next door, that I was the animal outside, that I was the trees outside. I started to realize this interconnection, this oneness, this unity, and started to really see it, particularly just in this matter of couple of weeks, because now as a collective, we're being forced to come together again. And we experienced those big bushfires here in the land down under only just before this all went down, as well, as a lot of you guys would know out there. that actually brought us together again. So a lot of my work now, a lot of my playtime, I'm out in bush. I'm connecting again with the divine. And I said this in a video the other day. In my meditation, she's pretty shitty. She's pretty shitty about our performance. She's pretty shitty about our behavior. But guess what? We got one more chance. We got one more chance, Jay. And I've been shown 2 timelines. We have that timeline to keep going down that rotten path that we've been raping, pillaging, absolutely being pigs and over-consuming the planet for its resources, or we go back to the old days. And I'm talking about my culture, being a First Nations person of this land here in the land down under, where we start to live in a symbiotic partnership with this planet, with each other, with the animals, and with the collective. So yeah, man, my work, my playtime's definitely gone in another direction, although it's been a part of me, but it just seems to be going deeper in this land down under over here. So yeah, a bit about me, what's been going on, Jay.
You know, I tell you, I've been very aware in the last week or so, especially the last couple of days, of how much safer. I'm in my own outback, by the way. I get out every morning for a couple of hours at minimum in nature, typically by myself. And I have seen more wildlife right in front of me than I have seen in close to 2 years that I've been living in the outback of North Scottsdale, Arizona. It's been amazing, the wildlife that have come out from hiding. And the only thing that is making sense to me is that there are some less people on the trails, but not enough where they would feel safe enough. I think it has to do with they're just aware of the energy shift, that something's happened. The smog is less, the skies are clearer blue, even here out in Arizona. And there's a calm that perhaps they're experiencing for the first time in decades in wildlife. There's less planes going overhead. I typically been seeing one over a 3-hour span. That's about it. And so I've seen all kinds of snakes. And today I saw a red cardinal sitting on top of the Palo Verde tree, which is the state tree. I also saw a bunny just born this morning. And he was literally in the middle of a trail, still had the placenta attached to him. And
wow,
I hadn't seen that before. I couldn't even tell it was a rabbit until I noticed someone pointed out the ears to me. So it's just amazing. The amount of rattlesnakes that I've seen in the last 4 days is more than I saw in a year and a half. It's almost like they're taken back. They feel safe to be out in the open. So it's just been a beautiful experience for me, witnessing a shift, not just only with us as humans, but what we're finding in nature in the moment is just amazing. It's just incredible what I've experienced. And so if you have an opportunity to get out from your 4 walls in a safe, smart way, to get out, go for a walk, find a park, find a pond, find a lake, find the ocean, find a forest, and see for yourself if you're aware of any shifts in nature. Josh, you live in Southern California. One of the, I think, over 40 million people live there, and the state's done a great job of managing, for now at least, the deaths compared to the cases. And I'm just curious, what have you been up to? I know it's a loaded question because I know you've been busy. What have you been up to? How have you been taking care of yourself during this downside? Because you were impacted. I think all of us have been impacted, no doubt. But you were right at that time. You were on set for working on what project was that you were on set for?
I was on a Disney show called Just Roll With It, and we officially shut down what was it, March 13th? I think it was that Friday the 13th was when we got, literally hours before our live taping, we were informed that the show was going down and until further notice. And I'm also scheduled to go back to Shark Tank here in a couple of weeks. And that's now pushed until August, September. Everybody's just sort of rolling it back. So yeah, it was, the rug was pulled out from under me for sure. And but I sort of saw this, I mean, you know, Evis, kind of to your point, I saw this as a reset, and I saw this as an opportunity. You know, in painful situations, there's always a lesson. There's always guidance in that if you're able to look for it and get curious around it. And so I just dove in knowing that the world kind of needed help right now. And I've been building an online course for since, gosh, fall of 2017. And so I dove in hard the last 25 days. I've literally, this is like what I've been staring at for 10, 12 hours a day to get this course out so I could support people right now. So I've been like on this like fast and furious like train for love and support and to be there for my fellow brothers and sisters. Cause I do feel like you were saying, Evis, we're all in this together for the first time ever. I think we as a whole are connected. This thing had no boundaries, and, you know, we're all in it together. And so I feel that hard, and I just want to give. And that's just really what I've been focusing on. So kind of now today, I launched yesterday, and kind of today is the first day that I'm kind of maybe feeling what everybody else felt like a month ago, like, what do I do now? You know? And so I'm looking forward to a little bit of downtime and relaxing, but I think I'm just super pumped and riding the wave of giving right now. I think that just feels so genuine to me. And that's kind of where I've just been super drawn to go. And so I'm just following that. And that is bringing me so much joy. There's so much joy in giving. And so, yeah, I've been on a wild ride for the last month.
Hey, Josh, how does that dial into yourself? In other words, have you been able to take time to do some self-care? How have you been showing up for yourself? Because I know you've been focused on putting together this chorus, but for me, what I hear is it's okay, that's beautiful, but how are you showing up for Josh Ritcher?
Sure. And you know what? Admittedly, I went, Jay, you know, we've talked about it. I'm bipolar. And it's an amazing gift. And I can focus and I can buckle down and I can crank out some amazing stuff. And it's not the best. But in this drive for giving, I allowed myself to go a little bit heavy on that direction. And that's been okay. It's what's felt right to me. And I know I've put self-care a little bit on the back burner, but it felt okay. I really kept checking in throughout this process and making sure that I wasn't putting myself in a bad spot or, you know, how we check in with ourselves. And the more we do this, the more in tune we get with ourselves. And so I really kept checking in, and it just felt right to keep pushing, and that it was okay, that my time will come. And I'm so ready to get back to my morning hour-long meditations and my routine. And I'm just pumped to have the product out.
How is this? Is this product kind of like the continuation of a book you launched end of last year, Ship for Brains? Is this like a continuum of that book, or is it taking us to the next level as far as mental wealth, as you like to refer to it?
Absolutely. You know, it's everybody always says our thoughts create our reality. And that was really obscure to me back in the day. And when I really studied it and dove into it, I realized how powerful this was, and actually how our lives do magically change when we're able to control our thoughts, our everyday thoughts. And so this was kind of, it was sort of, I guess, maybe selfish in the sense that this is what I always wanted, was like a simple how-to course. Like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And just so I can see, you know, change in my life and I can get past some of these blocks. And so basically I just created something that I had always wished for. Excuse me. But no, I'm really excited. It's super easy, and it's I worked literally like 2 years on this, so it's been a
Beautiful.
long
Well, congratulations on launching it in the last 24 hours or so. And thank you for stepping in today and taking time out of your launch to be with us today. Jeff Fasano, just a quick check-in. What's been happening? How have you been managing? I know that as a photographer, a large part of your responsibilities is to travel to get to the set. It's not happening in Nashville all the time. You travel the United States to engage in your work. And so how have you managed your time during this downtime to reset, reboot, renew, refresh?
Yeah, my entire world, the entire music world, is shut down, and everything is shut down. As an artist, everything just is done. It's finished and it could be quite a while. It might be even into the fall, where things will start to ramp up again. But my life right now is, I have moved totally inward in this global pause, because that's what we're in right now. We're in a global pause, and it's about, for me, back at the end of January, I got blasted with tinnitus or tinnitus. That has turned out to be the greatest gift in my world, because it brought up all the issues that I need to work on. It enlightened me to completely change my life. And I did that, and I've been doing that. And what's happening now is I'm just continuing an inner journey, an inner journey of moving within and knowing that before tinnitus was an old Jeff. It was a Jeff with a lot of stress, a Jeff with a lot of striving, a Jeff with a lot of false definitions of who I am, a Jeff my identity was somewhere else. And what I decided to do was shut everything down, even in my spiritual work, all of that work. I had a weekly newsletter that I put out that would take me 5 or 6 hours putting together on a Sunday. I completely shut everything down at the end of January. Still did photo shoots when they came up, and I had a lot of really great jobs, and all the way right up until March 13th, Josh. I had great jobs, and then everything shut down. But what I decided to do is I needed to heal. I really needed to take everything down and stop and completely change my life and move into a place of a new person who can open his heart and love, a new person who can open his heart and receive love, to let go of all of these old wounded inner child wounds and starting to love myself more deeply, so I can love out in the world more deeply and have a more fulfilled, engaging life, as opposed to striving to do this, my definitions of success, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when the tinnitus hit, it was every single issue that I had was like right in front of my face. Literally, here's all your issues, dude. And that's what I decided to do back at the end of January, and that is continuing into now, just working on being with myself, being comfortable with myself, and then starting to look at, when we come out of this pause, and I really feel that we're going to come out of this pause if in fact we can look at ourselves, look at what is really important. That is one of the things that I've been doing. Because we're here now, the outside world is not there. We're distancing ourselves from people. to go within and find out how we can best set ourselves up on the other side of this. And what I mean by set ourselves up, not so much in our professions or what we do, that's part of it, and I'm doing that as well. But how do we set up ourselves up spiritually, emotionally, connecting with other people? How are we looking? I mean, I can't wait to hug somebody. I literally cannot wait to hug somebody. I literally cannot wait to open my heart and be hugged, and then to let that in. I think we're moving in and moving into a new sense of community and harmony and we consciousness. But the only way that really can happen, and I really feel this, is if all of us now can just pause and go within and start, work on what we need to work on, but look and ask the same question: do I want to be the same person before this happened? We're going to go into a whole new normal, but what is that? What is that whole new normal? The whole new normal could be a more dreaming of we consciousness, dreaming of equality, dreaming of community, dreaming of opening our hearts and receiving love with people. And that's pretty much what I'm doing. I'm also, I have a backlog of photos all the way back until November that I'm getting to do. And I'm also going to be releasing a PDF ebook of something that I wrote when I lived in LA 4 years ago. I'm going to be releasing that next week, a PDF download called The Path of the Peaceful Warrior. It's a book of 22 messages about loving yourself more deeply. I guess to sum all of this up, what I'm doing now is learning to love myself, the authenticity of who I am, more deeply, and learning a great amount of self-care.
Beautiful. I love hearing that, Jeff Fasano, and welcome back. The last time we got together was January 5th, and that I've watched the replay now and watch party a number of times, and it was just an absolutely amazing conversation that unfolded between the four of us, and it was just absolutely beautiful. And it was just a couple of weeks later that, as you mentioned, that you got diagnosed with a medical condition that just kind of brought you to a whole nother level of new self-awareness and self-reflection and self-pause that was then amped up by the environmental changes that you had no control over, that the government has put in place for us at this moment. And it was just a beautiful exchange of conversation that unfolded. And it's beautiful that we have technology today that can bring us together. Although we may not be able to hug each other in a physical sense, I could tell, I know this, that we were all virtually hugging Jeff Fasano back on January 5th, when you had some amazing breakthroughs through conversations about coming home to yourself. And it was just moving forward, it was just a couple of 24 hours ago that Charles Mattocks and I had our first conversation. We were introduced through Hope for Cancer and 8 Days, which is a major project, that reality docuseries that you have put together. And you are the filmmaker for 8 Days. It's on WGN America. And we did a panel, a reunion for the cast of the show just a couple of days ago. And it was shortly thereafter that it struck me. I called you up just to follow up, just to see how you felt it went. And in that moment, it hit me that I would like to invite you to join Real Men, Real Talk Raw. And what then struck me, when I really thought about truly what is the common bond between all five of us, one of them, there's more than one, but one of them that really stands out to me is that each one of us has, in fact, reinvented ourselves more than once in our career. And it's behind the courage that it takes for any man or woman to step out of their comfort zone and do something different than what they were perhaps went to school, what they were trained for, what they were told they should be doing for their career, how they believe they should be showing up for themselves. I mean, each one of you has, in fact, reinvented yourself in the world of business and in career, and each one of you have had some significant success and continue to test the waters, push through your own fears, your own barriers. And so we're going to get into that in a moment here. But Charles, I'd like for you to introduce yourself to the Facebook and YouTube community and social media, and tell us a little bit about who you are and where you came from, because I call you the man with 9 lives. Your resume is incredible, what you have accomplished in such a short lifespan.
I definitely want to thank you, Jay, for inviting me. And obviously, you have assembled a group of movers and shakers in the world, and I was so excited to see who was on the panel here, and really just be able to share. I think that it comes at a perfect time when men really have something to say, and I don't think we have a voice where not only women but also other men could even chime in and kind of see someone who resembles themselves. But as you know, I'm like Evis. I'm a man who is very humble. I don't like to say too much about myself. I kind of let my resume and my hard work speak for itself. But I'm right now at this particular moment. I've been directing some beautiful television shows and some award-winning documentaries based on health. I created the first ever diabetes docu-reality series that aired on Discovery. Right now, we're in the first ever docu-reality series on cancer. Documentaries on everything from CRPS, which is a rare disease that my mother has, to diabetes and so on and so forth. So, that's really my thing. I don't know how I got into, I think maybe because of my own diagnosis with diabetes a couple of years ago, but it's something where I found my why, and my why is really about leaving a legacy for someone else and giving back, because we see right now how short of a time that we can have. You got the biggest and the best falling from this virus, and at any time it could be us, whether it's this or something else. And I want to make sure. I think one of my greatest fears is leaving this planet and being forgotten. Where somebody just says, well, yeah, all right, a couple of Facebook page posts and from a couple of good friends, and he's gone. So I want to leave something that will affect other people. So even when I'm gone, someone can say, wow, you know what, if it wasn't for him, or thank God he inspired me to do this. And that's why I create the projects that I do. They're probably at times, not the most lucrative, because people want to see the drama. They want to see the mess at times. So creating, projects that are about hope and about, diseases and conditions, don't bring in the multi-millions, but it makes me feel good at night, and I feel good. And I wanted to say, during this time, and I'm glad, some of you guys feel so positive, and I think that I think I've been naive almost all my life to what's going on around us in the world. And for the first time, it's like I'm really seeing, the men's hearts. People who we even thought, whether it's Bill Gates pushing the vaccine thing, or today Dr. Oz, I saw him say something about, letting kids go back to school, and only, 2 to 3% of the population would be affected as far as mortality. And you're really starting to see, what is going on inside of people's hearts. And I'm not sure that I think we've got a lot of healing to do, man. We've got to look deep into ourselves, because we're so divided. And I travel a lot, and I'm just like sure you guys do too as well. And not there's, I just got back from the Caymans, and man, it was beautiful out there. And I didn't see so much division as I see here in America, and I think even I was talking to somebody today in Aussie, and, she was walking the beach and she said it's peaceful over there. There's not so much division as it is right here. We've got to, I think what this has done is really expose so many things that we have to really look at and say, my God, how did we get here? And I hope, everyone on this panel I could see is in touch with themselves, but there are so many people who really aren't in touch with themselves. While we have looked into ourselves and work hard and pay our taxes and try to be better men, man, there's a whole slew of folks in this country, man, sorry to say, who don't think like we do. And I just hope, man, and pray that we could do better. So I talk too much. Go ahead.
No, you don't. You don't talk too much. What you say is important because it's your truth. I love what you shared, Charles. I love what all of you have brought to the table so far today. I said in the green room before we went live that I have on occasion had men push back at me in social media and challenge me because of the title of this podcast, Real Men, Real Talk, Raw.
Wow.
And on a number of occasions, the men that have pushed back have challenged me to say, what is a real man? What makes you think that you and your guests are real men? I had a gentleman last night in social media question me and say, well, what is an unreal man? And I asked him to share back with me what his perspective on that is, since he brought it up. He hasn't responded yet. He may be sleeping. I'm not quite sure what his motive was, but I think it's really important for us to really, really talk about, the title of this podcast was really set up. It was the first show that I launched just under 2 years ago. And it was based on, I had this vision, I had this intention to create a space, a platform for men to step forward and share their plight, share their story of triumph, share their story of coming from surviving to thriving, share their story of being incarcerated and making choices that put them in the federal prisons in the United States. And so, of course, the show expanded, and I've had guests as far away as India, Pakistan, Australia, UK, Netherlands, also as far as South America. It just expands the world, which is a beautiful gift that we get out of this, is that we get to see that it doesn't matter what country you come from. What matters is that we're a whole human being, and we are so connected. We are not just a global economy that is connected today. We are also a global world that's connected just through our energies of being humans. And there's not a whole lot of difference today between what Evis does, for example, in Australia, and what Josh and I do in the United States as coaches. We're all bringing forward our years of knowledge, and more importantly, our own experiences. Because you see, we're not teaching textbook theory on mental health. What we each bring forward is our own reality of the challenges, what we went through in our life, and how we navigated through it and created our own blueprint for our own health and wellness. And now we share it with others in a very profound way. But ultimately, I'd like to ask each one of you, let's have a little conversation here about what was your attraction to Real Men, Real Talk Raw? And what does it really mean to you? What's the difference between a real man and an unreal man? He didn't say fake man, but he said an unreal man. I found that interesting as well, since we throw around that word so easily in our vocabulary today. But so what is a real man, and how does that differ or differentiate from an unreal man? Hold on, we got to unmute you. All of you,
Yeah.
not because I want to silence you, but because I want to do some maintenance on management on reverb in the studio. So you are muted if you're not speaking. Just be aware of that. Thank you. Go ahead.
Beautiful. Yeah, no, I was just saying, Jay, and thanks, brothers, for opening up. Everyone's just got their own unique, beautiful story at where they're currently at, like you obviously mentioned. And I think what you're touching on there, Jay, is where we really need to look at. And it goes deep, so deep. And I do a Woke Warrior podcast. And a lot of the gentlemen, as you were on the podcast, Jay, that come on, they're speaking from a different place. They're speaking from a place of the heart. Now, we as men on this planet, we've been very drawn into a more logical mind. We've been coming from up here for far too long. You take it back to ancient cultures, and I'll bring up my culture again. We lived in a symbiotic relationship and partnership within the tribe, in the culture. But that was one stem with also, like I mentioned, the actual earth, mother, and all the animals that were within it. The story that we held within the tribe. But it was one that was in balance. And I mentioned this at the start, Jay. You know, you mentioned this real man, this unreal man. Yeah, everyone's going to have their truth about what that is. But from what I see from the current environment that we're in, from the current reset, from the isolation, from the separation, you know, Jeff said it nicely, you know, we are being asked to come back to self. Now, through my personal journey, when I was forced to come back to myself, I let relationships go, I let career go, I let all of those things go, that I identified myself as a man. But where do we pick up these programs? Because all of these things that we're downloading, they're simply programs. They're programs that have failed. They're programs that are old. It's proven now because they've fallen away from all men that I can see. And not many men are coming around in an inner circle table like this and speaking the way we do, because they're still living from an old program. So where do we need to go to? To me, brothers, we need to step back. We need to actually be passive at this time. You know how hard that is for a brother just to be still and sit with themselves? All the men that I'm currently helping on their transformation in this very time are having the biggest breakthroughs. And that's because they're balancing the feminine and the masculine brain. Now, we need to start understanding the truth about who we are within. We need to learn some of the things that we weren't taught at school. And my journey's been self-taught. I had to go through all this myself. And that might be hard for a lot of brothers out there because we've been so used to doing and going 100 miles an hour, trying to attack the next best thing or get to the next best thing. And we forgot about one thing. We forgot about ourselves. So my definition of being that realness is, yes, being able to come back to self first, being able to let go of some of the old ways because they're old. They've actually proven now that they didn't work. That's why we're resetting right now. And then we have to start uploading or downloading files that are going to bring this balance. And it may mean that we have to be passive at this time. The men that I'm currently helping, their big wins, they're sitting back at this time, Jay and brothers. They're sitting back, they're being passive. They're actually embracing the Empress energy, not the Emperor. They're forgetting about having to protect, because at the end of the day, who was always protecting the kids? It was the female at home, wasn't it? So we need to start awakening to this divine feminine that is on this planet right now. And whether we like it or not as men, that is going to make the most realness out of us at this particular time. So yeah, just my little bit of rant there, brothers.
Hey, Charles, I'd like to ask you to share from your perspective. You know, you're a guy who, well, yeah, I know one of your past lives. You've been coined a celebrity chef. You are an actor in Hollywood. I don't know if you still consider yourself an actor. You are a filmmaker. For all intents and purposes, you fit the profile of a real man living in American society, a modern society. But in fact, you know, how did you and how have you balanced uh, the career and how you have shown up in your life for yourself and for your family members? I know you're a father. I think of 4 or 5.
4, yeah.
4. And so how do you show up for yourself and for your family and balance your career and then still have time to show up for Charles?
Yeah. You know, I like the point that Evis made too as well, because, you know, I've got my 3 kids here with me now. They're upstairs though, and you literally find yourself, I find myself preparing to go to the grocery store like I am Legend. And I'm wrapping up, man. I'm doing everything because I have to come home to my kids. And you know, I think that when we talk about real men, I think that in real talk and so on and so forth, when we ask that question about being a real man, you know, I think that it's something where we have to metamorphosize into whatever we have to be the best person for not only ourselves, but our loved ones. And we can drop the ball if you're not focused on it. I remember I was doing a film in North Carolina. I remember, and somebody was working with Denzel, and they told me a story about someone on the set, maybe an extra trying to hit on him or something like that. And Denzel had said something to the point, and it stuck to me to this day. This was years ago. And he said, "See that person right there talking about the woman?" He said, "That's trouble." And I thought, wow, you know how many people would really embrace that cheat, embrace that little side piece, embrace that thing. So I think that I looked at that, and I always want to epitomize myself as being a solid person, a solid man. I know none of us are perfect, but you know, we do the best that we can, and I'm loving this panel because, you know, even hearing what Evis is saying and coming into that feminine side and so on and so forth, and being in touch with you and putting yourself first. And I love the fact that right now, all of us, even though we're going through this critical time, we've used this time to totally change. And Josh is writing and Jeff is doing his thing. And you know, I created a YouTube kids channel for my kids. I've been, you know, working on my other shows and just really digging down deep. I've started doing the veganism, Jay. I've really used this time, this downtime, to reinvent myself, and hoping that once we get past all of this and we can get back to things, that new me, that real man who had to take the time to look inside of himself, comes back as a much better person. So, you know, I'm balancing it all, brother. I mean, I put my kids first, you know, the higher power. I put the higher power first, then my kids, and then my other loved ones. And it's, once again, it's really not about me. It's just, you know, what we do as far as career, to be honest, is just to pay the bills. You know, it may be a love, it may be a passion, but we have so many other things that we could focus on, whether it's, you know, relationships and people that we love and family and mothers and fathers and things like that. That's I always say, Jay, I'm looking for a way out, not a way in. You know, I'm trying to retire in the next year or two and open up a retreat in the Cayman Islands, a health and wellness retreat. So
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that, Charles. Perhaps maybe we can do a Real Man, Real Talk Raw retreat.
Heck yeah, let's go. There you go.
It's possible.
Here and everybody comes down. Yeah.
It's possible. We just got to believe it's
man.
possible.
I'm in.
You know, set it in place. Set the intention. I see Evis is coming in from Australia.
Yeah, man. I've been there. I love it.
Hey, so Josh, I want to ask you because you know you've shared before. I've lost track. This may be our fifth time together. We've done some amazing work together, and one of the conversations we had, we really focused in on when you had hit a rock bottom in your life that really gave you an opportunity to really examine how you have been living, the choices you have been making. And
Sure.
it really put you into the driver's seat of significant change. I'd like for you to share just real briefly with the audience that are watching us live on a replay, what it took for you to come home, what it took for you to reconnect and reprioritize how you were showing up for yourself. What was that like for you?
Sure. You know, and for the people that didn't see, I stood on the 6th floor of the Sony parking garage, ready to jump on August 30th, 2016. Is my rebirth day that I celebrate every year. But just because of all the depression, anxiety, and I had a huge side business that crashed and took me down financially. So that's the quick version. But I think, you know, it's funny. I follow a lot of really inspirational people. And I think it was Lewis Howes had somebody on his podcast. And the first thing out of this guy's mouth was, change is hard. And I was like, oh, don't say that. Whatever you do, now you've implanted in somebody's head. Change for me, when I finally figured out what it was about, it wasn't hard at all. In fact, it was simple. It was beautiful. It was loving. And what facilitated that change was being able to look at myself honestly and to strip away the job, all the things that I thought were defining me and all the things that I thought I let go of all of that. And I was really just open to say, you know what? And open to be able to say, I don't know who I fully am, and that's okay. And I can move forward in discovery from this place of an unknown and be okay. And I don't need a title, and I don't need to label myself or put myself in a box. The brain loves to sort of, you know, be the crazy librarian and file all these things. And the brain loves to sort out everything in life, including ourselves. And who are we? What are we? And I think being able to just, Jeff, you touched on this too, being able to just say, you know what, I'm going to just be me, even if I don't know what that is right now. And that's okay. And I'm just going to move forward in life from a loving heart space. And I'm just going to discover as this unfolds. It's almost like the path is paving its way as you're walking, rather than your mind having to like map it all out and plan the whole thing out, which is where you know, Evis, you said the headspace, that damn headspace. I was stuck in it forever. And I got very attached to career path and titles and all of that. And when I finally let all that go, is like I was free. I was free to just be. And I think that's the hardest thing ever, is just being. And not hard there. I said it. I mean, it's not hard. It's a new way of thinking. And it's beautiful, and life just unfolds. And you're in unison with the universe, and you're co-creating rather than swimming upstream and fighting and struggling and all of that. So yeah, I think to be a real man for me means just letting go, and letting go of all the things that all those expectations I held on myself, and just being okay with the discovery process. Yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that.
I'm just taking a moment here just to pause, because I think sometimes we just need to be able to have a pause so we can really receive what we just heard. And you know what I love about looking at each one of you men is that your career, looking in from the outside, looks like, you know, we could tell a story as an outsider looking in on your life, each one of you, and we create the story of you've got it all. And it's just, we don't even know who you are, perhaps, but what appears to be the illusion of success is driven by the seduction of what success is, and to chase the dream, modern society dream, and to see how each one of you have worked and continue to work on dropping the armor and feeling safe just to show up as who you are. Doesn't mean that you have less success. In fact, it may mean greater success, because you're no longer feeling the need to always protect yourself with the armor, but just show up and do your work with passion. Do what you love to do. Yeah, thinking about passion and doing what you love to do, Jeff Fasano has shared. He's been a guest in Real Men Real Talk a number of times now. He's right up there. And you know what I love about Jeff's story is Jeff grew up in Staten Island, New York. I know I'm one of the few men that acknowledge that every time we get together, I put Staten Island back on the map. But Staten Island, New York is where it all began for Jeff. And he was a young kid working on Wall Street. And well, it's your story, Jeff, but real briefly, why don't you share what was a pivotal moment in your career? What was a pivotal moment in your life when you decided, when you had maybe one of your first awakenings? What was that about?
It's simple. I was miserable. When I was working in the World Trade Center for 18 years, I realized I was dating a woman at the time who said, Jeff, you hate your job, you hate your life. The only time you're ever happy is when you're with me, and you've got that camera in your hand. And I was working suit and tie every day. And she said that. And it wasn't until 3 months after we broke up that I was literally on the 1 train, leaving the World Trade Center, going to the gym to work out, that I put my head back and I heard that voice as if she was sitting next to me saying, you hate your job, you hate your life. The only time you're ever happy is when you're with me. And I realized that I was miserable. I was miserable. There was a lot of, the only thing I was miserable. But what hit me that night on the train, and I was the only one on the car. If anybody's been to New York City, you know what the subways are like. And what hit me was, it's time to grow up. I was 33 years old. I'm 61 years old now. And I went home and I realized that I was miserable and angry, not at anybody. It was just that I wasn't enjoying this life. I didn't even know what this life was. And I went home and I made a list. At the top, I wrote, what do I want to be when I grow up? And by around 11:30 that night, photography leapt off the page and it hit me in my soul, and I found it. I found what brings me the greatest amount of joy. And in my life right now, what Evis said that just rang so true. You have a way, dude, of like hitting me. You did it the last time we did this. Of just stepping back and going within. And so I just decided in that moment that I wanted to create a whole new life. And I'm actually doing that right now in my life. My life seems to go in 20-year periods. I created this and I quit my job at 40 years old to create a whole new life for myself and as a photographer, that opened up tons and tons of doors. When we find our soul's passion and our soul hits us, it just opens more doorways. When we're in a flow of what we're here to do on this earth, what we came here to do, doorways just open. And then it's up to us to be available to walk through the doorways that that we're not opening, but open for us, because we're in connection to why we're here. And that's what happened for me over the 20-year period. And then, boom, I'm in my 20th year of doing photography, and I am right now in a similar place with a whole, like right now, I can honestly say, I really don't know who I am right now. I have no idea right now who I really am, and I'm doing this work right now to get more deeply in touch with the authentic me. And as Josh said, and I so identify what Josh was saying, I had a definition of what success was up until right before tinnitus hit me in January, that my definition of success was what is reflected or not reflected in my bank account. And I really didn't know that until the universe came and said, we're going to stop you dead in your tracks, dude. And we're going to give you this tinnitus, and it's going to stop you. And so much came up, but what I said, what I needed to do was totally step back from everything and take that so retreat into me. So when I come out the other side, it will be a whole new me, but remembering who I truly am. And one of those steps I made was to go back to when I quit my job as in the corporate world, to find out why I did that. I totally forgot after 20 years, why did I choose to create this new life and do photography? I am in the process of getting reacquainted and going back and getting in touch with that place as being an artist of why. And so that breakthrough back 20 years ago when I was 40, because I was miserable, I realized at the end of January that I was miserable. Just back in the end of January, I didn't realize how miserable I was until the universe said, bang, we're going to give you this gift. And Jay, you even said it when we spoke, is going to be one of my greatest gifts. And I had to step back and just go back within. And this is another turning point for myself to get really back in touch with what is real for me and what is really important for me. What is really important for me? So I can be that new person, so I can close the door on that old person. Take some of the cool stuff, but go back and get in touch with the excitation of why I chose to change my life 21 years ago. And I'm just saying I need to do that again. And so the turning point 20 years ago was I was miserable. The turning point right now is I don't think I was totally miserable, but I wasn't living in a place of abundance and joy. But I have to find what that abundance is, and that abundance lies inside of me. It's not my bank account. It's not what's on my website. It's not who I photographed or who I've worked with that everybody loves to talk about. That's not it. What it is that Why am I here? What put me here? And what am I to do with that? And it's not so much and Josh touched on this, it's not about doing anymore, which is what this wonderful period of time is. If people can just look at how much we can't do right now, we can't do. So it's really getting to a place of moving inside and be comfortable with being and breathing and being and knowing that being who we are is good enough. And that is the recharge. That can shift, make a quantum shift in our personal lives, and on the other side of this, the world, if we take the time to do that. And I guess being miserable or discontent or being in some disillusionment has been my what spurred me on to change my life.
I love that, Jeff. I want to just take a moment here just to honor you and Josh and Charles and Evis for showing up today and really deep diving into your perspective on what it is about to be a real man today. And I'd like to share from my perspective, if I may. For me, what I had to learn, and I was in corporate America as well for over 3 decades. I was very successful career, initially in sales and marketing. My whole career, I was working towards what I thought was heaven for me. What was my dream was to end up in senior management of a multi-million-dollar corporation. And that happened. And I was just about 44 or so, I believe, when I was brought into a corporation down in Southern California. And, you know, through the process of chasing the dream, I had it all. I had achieved it all. From the outside looking in, I had the beautiful wife. I had the 3 sons. I had the houses. I had the cars. I had the vacations. Oh, I had the sharp clothing. But inside myself, I was hurting. I wasn't happy. I felt alone, even though I wasn't. I was surrounded by family. And it wasn't until, you know, Jeff described getting tagged with a medical condition. I wasn't paying attention to me. I wasn't paying attention to what I was feeling on the inside. I just knew it. I felt bad. And that led me to addictions, many addictions, not 1, not 2, but 5. And none of them included alcohol and drugs. Imagine that. But the truth is that I was miserable, like Jeff described. And in the end, for me, what a real man is about is a man that is able to slow down enough and really examine how they feel about themselves, how we are showing up for ourselves, truly understanding how our words and our behaviors impact other people in our life, our children, our partners, our siblings, our parents, our friends, our employers, our employees. And knowing that the way I was showing up in my life for all 54 years at that time, it reached a point where I was out of control and my life was out of control. It was breaking down on all levels, emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual. And through that experience of eventually being near death, I got forced to slow down, just the way we are being forced to slow down globally. And through that process, which really began almost 5 years ago, back in 2015, I got that opportunity to really examine every aspect of my life, every aspect, looking in every corner to uncover all the shadows, all of the wounds, all the pain, all of the broken promises, all of the broken relationships, damaged, wounded relationships, I would say, and begin my own healing journey. And through that healing journey, I got to understand what becoming a real man meant for me. And that was learning how to live in a balance, as Evis somewhat pointed out, to the difference between feminine and masculine divinity within us, that we all have estrogen and testosterone, which creates a feminine and a masculine part of who we are. And learning to become safe in expressing both parts of myself, all parts of myself, and knowing when it was appropriate to show up and be the man, be the tough guy, be the guy that was strong emotionally, physically, but also know when it was okay to feel safe enough to say these words. I'm scared, or I have anxiety right now, or I'm sad, or I'm angry, but not show it with rage, but show it, express it through the words that I could speak that were not going to be hurtful to others. And learning how to feel safe enough to do what Jeff Fasano did back on January 5th, which is he got activated, he got emotional. In that moment, he felt something really deep within himself, not in his head space, but his heart space. And he cried. Real men do cry. I wrote a blog on that 2.5 years ago. That's the power that women are looking for in men. That's the real leadership that a lot of women want to see in their man, is a man that feels safe enough and comfortable enough to express their feelings through words, through writing, through expression, through emotion, and know that we're not going to be judged. And if we are, then perhaps we should be examining the relationship that we're in. Our relationship should not be about judgment. There should be about respect and love and kindness. And if that's the relationship that we're in, then we should be examining, why are we in a relationship where we can't just learn how to be who we are and be safe. And so for me, that was the premise of starting this program, was to provide a platform for men to step forward and share. I had men come on that were stage 4 prostate cancer, stage 2, and to share what that journey was like. Unfortunately, one of those men didn't make it. He was a friend of mine. We met while I was in my healing journey early on. But in the end, what it comes down to is really us examining how we are showing up for ourselves, and are we at peace with that? Do we like who we are? Is it possible that we may even fall in love with ourselves so that we have more to give to others? So when a man asks me, well, what's an unreal man? My answer really is a man who's not comfortable or feels safe to be okay with all aspects of himself, and is being driven by someone else's belief system on what a real man, how a man shows up in life, how he shows up in his relationships. Jeff had shared that he was on Wall Street, and he was doing Wall Street not for himself. He was doing it for probably the most important man in his life. Who was that, Jeff?
My father. Yep. My whole life up until that point was as Evis said, my programming was, I created and patterned and my life, and I was in the same business as my father, unbeknownst to me, just to get him to say, I love you. And I didn't even know I was doing all of that. And that's for 18, almost 20 years of my life. I was in that world based upon my father's belief systems that he taught me, thus programmed within me. And that's why I was there. Get a pension, get benefits, get a retirement fund, all of that stuff, to keep ourselves safe and secure. And that's why I was doing that until this angel woman came along in my life, and we had a great relationship for 2 years, but it was those words that jarred me. And I realized it wasn't about photography. It was, I said, I want my life on my terms. And shortly after that, I got into therapy and then realized what I just told you. I didn't know this at that time, but I was trying to please my dad.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Jeff. You know, it brought to mind one of the statements I share with my coaching clients is, we don't know what we don't know until we know it. But once we know it, it's a choice to go back, or it's a choice to step forward into truly who we are and who we want to be. I remember, Josh, you had shared, I think on the last time we got together, that when you were writing the last parts of your book that you released right around the new year, you had shared, you shared privately with me, and I brought it up in our conversation, how when you were writing one of the most important chapters in the book, your dad, I think, happened to reach out to you and call you in that day when you were completing the book. And there was a pivotal moment in that day that happened for you, that unfolded. Do you recall what transpired?
You know, it's so funny. Like when you process emotions and when you work through them, they sort of just like wash away and you forget. Refresh my memory.
Okay, I'll bring you there. I share this moment because, just as Jeff said, that he went into the career that his dad went into because that was what he did. That's what millions of men do. We follow the path that we think will make our parents proud. So perhaps maybe they'll tell us they love us, and maybe this time we'll believe it, because maybe the 10 times or 100 times before we didn't.
Yeah.
So what I recall you saying, Josh, was that it took you so long to have the courage to tell your dad that you finally made the decision to shut down the business. You had a startup business that is really what brought you into this awakening of near death, of drinking yourself to death and wanting to jump off the Sony parking lot. And so you recall what that moment was like for you when your dad asked you the question. He said, "What's going on with you and your startup?" Mm-hmm. And what did you have the courage to say to your dad that day?
It was no coincidence that he asked on that day. Yeah, I mean, the universe is beautiful and patient in its loving guidance and timing. And so, yeah, he asked that day when I was officially, I had called our tax guy as well to say, you know, we're shutting down the startup. And it was so... the startup was really crazy too, in a sense that I checked in as I was getting financially out further on a limb and getting more exposed, and things were getting scarier and darker, and I was putting more and more money in, and now it was investor money and friends and family money, and I kept checking in to be like, is this right? Like, oh my God, I'm really getting deep into this and getting into some scary territory. And it felt right. And for a lot of years, when that startup tanked and when it took me down, I was really bitter at the world because I thought, God, I was checking in. It felt right. Why did that feel right for all of this to just go so horribly wrong? And it wasn't until about 2 years after my crash, I was on the phone with my mom, and it finally hit me that all of that had to happen. It had to go down. It had to implode. It had to destruct to bring me to my knees so that I could wake up to the truth and learn all of these wonderful things that I have. and become the person I am today. The crash was part of it, and it was my journey, and it was my path, and it has brought me to my passion, which is waking others up. And so without all of that, so I think, you know, it's we often don't, in the moment, we don't know what things are. And they're often not clear in the moment. And sometimes, I mean, for this realization to happen, it was like 10 years after that I finally got the lesson in this. But if you're open to it, it's coming. And it's just like the time that's happening to all of us right now. We don't know what this is, but stay open, stay vulnerable, stay willing to hear that inner guidance and hear that inner voice and move with it. And the answers will come. So trust and surrender in that there's a greater something that's happening. And as long as you're following your heart, you'll end up right where you need to be. So anyways, could get on my soapbox forever on that one.
Yeah, what you were is that you were in flow, and that feels a whole lot better than soapbox for me personally. You were in flow, and that's not to be judged. I mean, that's a beautiful space to be in when we're in it, and the words just come, and there's emotions behind it. It's a beautiful moment that we get to experience as men. What I want to bring back you to, Josh, in this moment is that when your dad asked you, what's going on with your startup? And as you described it to me, it was a pivotal moment for you because you were at peace with your decision. And when you told your dad in that moment, Dad, I've shut the business, I'm putting it behind me. I asked you, how did you feel physically when you finally had the courage to tell your dad what you were fearful of telling him? What was behind what was the fear? What were you afraid to? What was behind the fear of telling your dad that you were shutting it down? And how did it feel when you finally shared your truth with him and you were at peace?
Oh, I mean, the fear was, of course, failure, to show my dad that I had failed and that I wasn't capable of being a man and a businessman and all of that. There was an incredible amount of, but when I finally came to the decision, and that day, yeah, Jay, I remember specifically, it was all gone. There was no failure in it anymore. There was only, I saw the lessons, and I saw the learning, and I saw what I will take with me for the rest of my life. And so how can that be a failure? And being able to just tell the one person whose approval I wanted the most, like you were saying too, Jeff, you know, to be able to say it didn't work out, and that's okay. And to be okay with that one person whose approval you wanted most, was beautiful. So freeing. And so just the self-love and the self-care in that moment, to put aside expectations and just say, no, it went down, it failed, and that's all right. And it's not a reflection of me and my strengths or my talents or what I am or what I am not. It just happened. These are events. You know, the events don't define us.
I love that, Josh. And that's so powerful for us as men to hear and to really accept as a truth. You know, we get so absorbed into how our parents, our teachers, our mentors are going to perceive us. And the most important person that we can focus on is ourselves, and how do we receive ourselves, and how do we talk to ourselves, and understand that it's possible that when we release everyone else's burden on us, and perhaps their own lack of success in their own journey, it's not our responsibility. We don't have to hold them up anymore. It's for us to hold ourselves up and honor ourselves. That brings me to Charles. I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna unmute you right here. Go ahead,
I
Charles.
just wanted to jump in with Josh too. And I think that, you know, of course we know it's all a learning lesson, but I think that, you know, I remember, and I compare it to what Josh is talking about. I remember when I first started in music, and I wanted to, you know, inspired by who my uncle was, I wanted to make a record. And I actually, man, I had a big deal with Russell Simmons. I had a big deal with this one, that one. I ended up doing a single with Tommy Boy, who had Naughty by Nature and all that kind of stuff. And I remember it didn't do well. But I said, you know what? I wanted a record deal. I didn't say it had to do well. I wanted a record deal, and I got that. I didn't need to sell 10 million records. I got what I asked for. So even when we think about that, what, you know, you started that business. Yeah, maybe it didn't make millions of dollars. Maybe it didn't make hundreds of thousands of dollars. But you got that, and you proved something to yourself. And even if it didn't do exactly what you wanted to do, you knew you did it, and you could always do it again, and you could always do it better. And I actually went on from there to go into other places. And sometimes I wonder, man, if that record deal might have taken off, where would I be today? I might not be the compassionate person who's fighting for people and making these documentaries and these shows and a diabetes advocate and all that kind of stuff like that. Who knows? So, and the fact that Josh is in Los Angeles, man, living the dream that most people fly around the world to come live, but he's still creating projects and still doing things to give back. It shows that, you know, his transformation is full circle. So I commend him.
Wow. Much love back at you. All of you guys. This is an incredible room.
Charles, what really intrigued me about you, and really what brought me connected to you, and you may not be aware of this in this moment, but as I learned more about your backstory and how you have chosen this path of becoming a filmmaker. Like I said, this guy, you've had 9 lives. It's amazing. But your passion for making films is for making films of relevance, making films of education. The fact that you shared, I learned that your dad had passed. He had cancer, and he passed about 5 years or so ago. And that's really what brought you into this project right now that's airing. Episode 3 on WGN America Network is called 8 Days. It follows 5 cancer patients. I believe the majority, if not all of them, were stage 4 metastasized. They were given months to live. And you follow them in a reality show to see, watching them go through alternative treatment for cancer outside of the traditional Western medicine, that may have included for some chemo and radiation, but they were part of a treatment facility, Hope for Cancer, down in Mexico. And you brought their stories to life, and how Hope for Cancer and other treatment facilities that opt for traditional treatment has and continues to save lives. Some amazing success. And then how really for you that was, I believe, my interpretation was it was in a way to honor your dad and to show love to your dad. That project, you also did a project that's going streaming across the bottom, reverseyourhealth.com. That was a documentary on diabetes, which was based on your own diagnosis and how you had to navigate through and change your life to save your life. And then I watched the documentary. You mentioned you did one regarding a rare disease that your mom has and is still alive and is still very much affected by the medical condition. It's just a beautiful way it's interesting how you have chosen film as a way to show love and respect and honor to yourself, to your mom, and to your dad. And you do it in such a beautiful way. I watched episodes 1 and 2, and I just love how, as a filmmaker, you're not behind the camera. You're actually in front of the camera. You're part of the reality show, the docuseries. And you bring forward such a gentleness as a filmmaker, as you, gentleness in the sense of compassion and empathy for the patients, for the people that you have featured in these docuseries. And it just shows that you are a man that has so much love to give. And the way you express it and give it in the work you do is beautiful. You know, each one of us, I believe, brings forward our own experiences, our own hurts, our own sadness, our own pain, but most importantly, our love for ourselves and love for other people in our life through the work that we do. With Jeff Fasano, it shows up in a lens. You know, the pictures that come out of the people that you have taken photographs, you know, doing shoots for. It's just a beautiful way that we get to show up today for others when we are able to first check in with ourselves. Hey, Charles, how does it feel to receive what I just said to you?
You know, I once again, it's really about the mission. You know, I mean, I know that I have to plug myself. I have to, you know, even yesterday I was on some calls with some sponsors for my new show, The Plus. And, you know, the lady who does my marketing says, you know, she always says on every call, she says, Charles is very modest. He doesn't talk about any of this stuff. And then she brings out all the stuff that I've done. So I really, you know, I probably do a bad job of selling myself, but you know, I know I have to, but with that, and I'm going to make a plug here. And I got something interesting as it runs through my mind. I'm working on a new season of Reverse, which is the diabetes show. I could definitely use Jeff as a photographer. Definitely use Evis as a coach and a personal trainer too on the show, because it's all about that. Jay, I want to bring you on as an inspirational type person, since you have reversed a lot of your conditions. And Josh, Shark Tank has never had someone sell a show before. Let that be the first one.
It would. I love it.
Sharks could actually do a lot with this concept. It's already proven, which the Shark Tank is what they like, something that's proven, that's done well, right? And going on and already had success. Now they can take that, man, and they can connect a couple of dots. We could have the biggest show on television. Trust me.
I love it. Let's do it. Let's do it. The power team. For sure.
Well, I tell you, this is, I've really enjoyed the time we have spent together today. This is no doubt real men, real talk, raw. I love how each one of you have stepped in today to step out and participate in this amazing conversation. A conversation that I would just love to see us expand globally, because, you know, I think what men lack is just the courage to step into themselves and know that we don't have to show up the way we think we're supposed to show up, the way we think others people think we're supposed to show up. We could just show up. We could just give ourselves permission to just be and be okay with that. I'd like to invite each one of you to give some closing thoughts. Perhaps maybe there is a man listening today and or a woman live or on replay that is ready to hear some words of hope and inspiration for men that may be in this moment unsure of where they're at, where they're heading, who they are, and who they want to be when we all come out of this moment of shelter in place or quarantine. And so I'd like to start with Jeff Fasano to put some closing thoughts onto this conversation right now.
Well, during this time, if let go of thinking that you need to do a lot of things. One of the most courageous things that we can do in our lives is self-introspection. At times you're not going to like what you find. A lot of feelings are going to come up. But if you'll have the time right now, look within, go within, breathe in, feel your feelings, find out who you are, find out truly what is important for you in life. Take the time to go within, pause, breathe, and simply be. Be where you are, who you are. The doing has been taken away from us, so we can just go within and pause and be. And something Charles said an hour ago when he came back from the Cayman Islands, and he realized how much separation and isolation and division there is in this country. And it's time to come together and allow yourself to see the differences in the world. See other people as they are. The only way that could happen is if you do the inner work. And the inner work is very courageous and frightening at the same time. And this is a perfect time to start looking at, what is most important. If you can, detach from the 3D world. If you can detach yourself from what's going on in the world, keep an eye on it, because we're in it, and you don't have to be of it. And start to heal within yourself, so we can come out the other side of this in a more of a community. But the only way that could happen is going in and really loving yourself, digging yourself, honoring yourself, valuing yourself. And then you'll start to value other people, as opposed to being with the programming and all of your wounds. But it's very courageous to do that. And that's my definition of a real man.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing it. I salute you. Josh, Ritcher, closing thoughts.
Yeah, Jeff, I mean, you said it. I can't, I don't think I can word it any better than that. That was beautiful. Thank you, Jeff. All of you guys. I appreciate and love all of you. And it's self-love, and having the courage to do that and to put ourselves, I think it's filling our cup first allows us to give more and to be whole with others. And I think Jeff, you nailed it. Having the courage to dive in and do that work in ourselves, so that our cup is full, and so that we show up to the world whole and from a loving, kind place, not from a place of need and lack. And not that we're trying to get anything from the world or from other people. It's that we're full already, and we've given that to ourselves, and we can now meet the world and give of our talents and our unique things that, we are, all of us that we are. And so, having the courage to do the work, as Jeff said, is beautiful. It's the most amazing gift you can give to yourself.
Thanks, Josh. Charles, you're up.
I would like to say, I think this is a good time that we could see that. I think before this time, there were a lot of selfish people. And what I mean by that is that people weren't looking back at, who might have been right beneath them or right next to them. Now is the time for us to work together. Every one of us here, we should have someone who we are trying to bring up that can, be in a position like we are. We can reach out to other people who are less fortunate. I've been seeing people sending people, I saw a girl today say, hey, you know what, man, if you have the PayPal or Cash App, I'm sending 10 people $25. I think now is a time for us to really look and mediocre shouldn't be the norm anymore. I hope we look past, the Real Housewives of Atlantis and go back towards something that makes some sense. I hope we, the Instagram models, kind of disappear now, when we get back to what makes some sense, right? Because we've been too cush and too easy on the foolishness, and now we have to kind of look at what's really important. Showing abs on Instagram and then on Facebook is not important anymore. Man, people, I don't care how rich you are right now, finding a roll of toilet tissue can be a major task. So we should be trying to empower people around us. We should be working together and pulling people and saying, listen, we can't do this by ourselves. And really just always, like Jeff and Josh said, just improving daily. And even what Jeff said, when you look at, and when I think of, okay, maybe in the next 10 years, I might have to re-examine myself again, right? Because while today we may think we got it together, in 10 years from now, I might have to say, man, whoa, where am I? So knowing that it's always a process, it's always a chore, it's always a task. So that's what I think a real man is. And I love this conversation, and blessed to be even having this conversation with you guys. And man, I think we did some damage today, brother.
Well, if nothing else, I think what we've done is we've opened up the wounds. Because you see, in order for us to come home to ourselves, as we've talked about here in different ways, we're speaking the same words, a different language. Each one of us bring it forward just slightly different. But when we bring it together, the coming home is connecting to ourselves, getting to know who we are, our true self, not who we think the people in our life want us to be, but who we are. Speak our truth. And through that process, we get to actually begin to like ourselves and understand truly what our purpose is to be what we are to be here in this moment, right here, right now. And so with that, I want to turn it over to Evis Heath, coming in from down under in Australia. This is a man who, we met, I think sometime in the late fall. And we both exchanged. I was a guest on his show. He interviewed me, and I interviewed him. And it's been a love fest. And what I admire about you, Evis, is that you show up, and you your passion is to inspire other men that it's possible to break through, to break free, to inner freedom. And that's what we have in common. That's the work that I'm doing out here in our own outback. And there's not a greater feeling when I know for myself, and I know you share the same excitement, is when we are able to witness and see one of our clients break through, to break free, to inner freedom. And that's the inner awakening and to be safe, to accept who we are and begin to like who we are. And so I'd like to invite you, Evis, to share some closing thoughts and take us out.
Awesome. Thanks, my brother. Jade Roth, the man. And all my brothers on the panel tonight, thank you. Absolute pleasure listening to you, brothers, and absolute honor to be on such a prestige platform. and be able to share. I would say it's an awakening for men. So my little parting words, and I just sit back and observe a lot of what the brothers are saying, and it just hit me in one part and one aspect, and I'll leave that as I try and bundle all this together. But my thing here is really we're starting to see that we have to let go of layers. We have to shred a lot of old stuff. That it needs to be the part one of the episode. Now, when I look around at our panel tonight, I see we've all got something to do with vision, with the eyes. We have Jeff, he's the cameraman, he's in photography. We have my brother Josh down here, he's the Shark Tank. We've got my brother Charles down here, he's doing the docos. We've got Jay Roth, the man, up on there doing his he's walking hill. He's out on doing his videos and putting these beautiful segments together so we can vision and see this on a platform which we're all locked at home to have to experience at the moment. So there's a lot of stuff going on here with vision. We came into the year of 2020. What was it the year supposed to be of? It was supposed to be of vision and clarity. So we need to start finding that clarity. And as each one of you beautiful men touched on, we need to find that clarity within ourselves first. Now, with the breakthroughs that I'm having to allow, as Jay Rothman says, my brothers that I help on their transformation to break free, they may be at home at the moment. They may be in self-isolation, but they're not alone. They may be made to keep separated, but you know what? They're staying connected. They may be being asked to be socially distanced at the moment, but guess what, brothers? They're creating communities worldwide. I saw the latest Bad Boys. Did anyone else see that?
Yeah.
Everyone else see that, brothers? Yeah. There was a scene in the end there, and you see the three walking out of the fire. You see Martin Lawrence, you see Will Smith, and you see the son. Straight away, I just thought of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. But if you see and you listen to what Martin Lawrence says there, he's got these glasses on. He goes, wow, it's just so clear right now. It's like I'm seeing in HD. Well, Will Smith says to him in a part of that Bad Boys as well. He said, come on, man, we've got to be bad boys forever. We've got to be bad boys forever. And Martin Lawrence says, I'm over being a bad boy. I want to be a good man. And Will Smith, no. That won't sound right. You know the song goes, bad boys, bad boys. You can't say, good man, what you gonna do? Doesn't sound right. And Will Smith, Martin Lawrence says one thing. He said it would if we sung it from the heart. And on that note, brothers, peace be with you.
Wow.
Way to bring it home.
Wow. That to me feels like freedom right there. When we sing it from our heart, it changes everything. It changes the tune. It changes the vibration. It changes how we receive it. It changes how we perceive it. And it changes the experience. When we accept the idea, let's just touch on the idea. And these are my closing thoughts. When we accept the idea that we could sing it from the heart space and stop trying to sing it from the head space, it changes everything for us. For the men out there that have been chasing it and thinking the best way to connect with other people is through our headspace, by saying what we think they want us to be or what they want to hear, who we are, and start singing it from our heart space and just be who we really are. That's where real men come into play. That's where we show up. And ultimately, that's what people want in their relationships with us. They just want us to show up and speak our truth from our heart space. Just be who we are.
And that's enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And so with that, I want to just take a moment here to thank each one of you beautiful men that have touched my life in a very short time that I know each one of you. I have tremendous respect for you. Less about the work you do and more about the man that you have become today. I know what it takes because I've been on that same journey. And it's a beautiful path that we have laid out for ourselves. And by having gone through this experience and continuing to evolve through our own experience, we get to share it with others by how we show up. I believe that the greatest gift we get to be as men is becoming a mentor for others, true leaders in our homes, in our workplaces, in our schools, in all of our relationships. Real men are mentors. And with that, thank you so much for joining us today on Real Men, Real Talk Raw. We will be back. I don't know when, but we will be back together in the studio to have another conversation when the time's right. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. Hold on, let me unmic you so we could say your goodbyes and
yeah, pleasure meeting everybody. Hey Jay, you got something here, brother.
you guys can stay in the studio just for a moment thereafter. I'm going to end it now. Thank you so much for joining us in our audience and our community.
Everybody. God bless.
Thank you all.
Peace, brothers. Thank you.